Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're still fit. Are you, after all these conflicts, etc., and so on? I would like to take you up today on an 8,000 meter peak. These 8,000 meter peaks are in the so-called death zone. Why is it called death zone? Because you can imagine it's maybe 25% of the oxygen content we have in here from 7,000 meters onwards. So you can imagine it's like a candlelight, and you take a cup and put it over that candlelight, and the candlelight has not enough oxygen to glow, and therefore the light is going out. And it's the same with our organism. We are not made as human beings to survive beyond 7,700, 7,400, 500 meters. We are dying sooner or later. And in order to compensate it, or let's say we took two tools, because you all have heard about Mount Everest, you have heard about base camp, and then you hear about Camp 1 and Icefall, and Camp 2 and Camp 3, and so back and forth. And here, in the end, it takes about 4, 5, 6 days to get up and to get down, if at all, if you make it at all. And we said, no, we want to reduce our risk by the formula speed. So maybe taking a time frame of 24 hours, in the case of Manaslu, where we are going today, 8,163 meters high. So a time frame of 24 hours where we said, we reach the summit and going to be back down. Or we not reach the summit, but we're still going to be back down in 24 hours. And the skis were part of it because it was for us a security to get down quicker. None of these mountains is made for skiing. But where did it all start? And I thought, I showed this little picture. I'm the ugly one on the left here. And I don't know who has been climbing an 8,000 meter peak already. Who wants to? Not yet? But I was born here in Munich as the fifth out of 6 children. And an 8,000 meter peak was an utopia, as for the most of you. But it somehow starts, and you get it inside, and you think, you know, it's not from today to tomorrow. There's a lot of things happening in between where you have setbacks. Sometimes you have to go back, and then you have to go, then you have to get in again, and so back and so forth, and here and there. And suddenly, the first 8,000 meter peak was there in our style. We succeeded, and in 2007 we said, we don't go to Everest. We go to Manaslu, the 8th highest peak, because there's not a lot of people there. And we found out soon why there's not a lot of people there, because it snows permanently. It doesn't have a very good statistic. A lot of people died on Manaslu because it stands there, so very alone. And we learned that we are not climbers. We learned digging the whole day. We learned digging and digging and digging because it snowed and snowed and snowed. Usually we love snow as skiers, but at this time we didn't love it anymore. We really thought we are getting mad. If you are stuck in a tent for more than 3 weeks together in a team, you get pretty insane. You don't have any chance to dry your clothes, etc., etc. And we were, I wouldn't say, we weren't not just frustrated, we were really done. We didn't want to go back anymore. We were really fed up. On the other hand, this goal remained. I did a couple of other expeditions in between, and still there was Manaslu. There was still an open bill. There was still something which wasn't achieved yet. And in the next picture, you see why I was so fascinated. This mountain stands, it just stands there. You get to Nepal. And in Nepal, on 3,300 meters, there's this little village, the last village. There's no electricity. I think today there is by now, and so on. But you look up, you have to take your head and really get it all the way back in your neck in order to see that mountain which is up there, from out of the jungle where 200 birds are singing, etc. And then you see that 8,000 meter peak. We also got up. We learned that you have to go slow in order to go fast. This was one of my biggest learnings. You have to go slow in order to go fast, so really prepare. Nothing is spontaneous, it's well prepared. On the other hand, you have to be flexible, and you have to take into account that going back is part of the game. You see where kind of the glaciers is ending, where the brown little thing is, this is the base camp, around 5,000 meters. Up there on that little spoon there, you see a couple of dots. This is, for example, Camp 1. And we wanted to do everything from base camp in one single shot within 24 hours up and down. This was our big target. So we prepared, we moved up, and finally we saw again the summit. We were out there, and this was maybe a situation or a decision, I should better say, which saved my life. Here you see that big surface, and in 2007 we actually turned around in that phase because of avalanche risk. This was the only attempt we even had in 2007. It was not a serious attempt. We just said, well, let's try it at least, but we felt we are dropping a piece of paper and the whole face would come in terms of an avalanche. And you can imagine what it looks like if an avalanche comes. So sometimes we have that stomach feeling, and I learned that the stomach feeling is maybe a survival factor. It's nothing else than our instincts. This is nothing primitive. This is something which is giving you, I imagine sometimes like on a computer, you play or you press a button and it gives you kind of an answer. So we took an unconventional decision and put our camp spot on that little glacier lip, which was out of the, let's say, normal route. And we had to take into account an extra way. Of course, we don't like extra ways, but we felt a little bit better, I would say. It came like it always has to come. It started snowing, and you can imagine every day it snows. The summit gets further and further away because you lose time. You have a certain time frame, not only for the speed ascent, but also for the whole expedition. And finally, it stopped snowing, and after a couple of days, when the avalanche risk had settled, we went back up again. And on this picture here, you see we are on 6,400 meters. We are digging out our camps, our tents. All of the tents are broken. You see in there, you see the little dots in the background there on the right hand, or in the middle on the right hand side. These are the other mountaineers who are going on to the, I would say, traditional camp spots. There is no, let's say, it's not like a camping place where you find signs, etc., and so on. But this were the traditional camp spots, I would say, since the Japanese conquered the mountain in the 50s. It was the first beautiful day. Actually, I can say the first beautiful day since I had been there already in 2007 and again in 2012. And the night was absolutely wind still, and we were really dreaming of the summit. It was, by the way, the Oktoberfest was starting. It was the 22nd of September. I remember very well because we were celebrating a little bit. It was super cold, minus 30 degrees. And the tents were broken, so we had, everything was ripped off, so we had a clear view into the sky. I mean, the sky is right there. You really feel you could fly out, and that's it. And as we were thinking on the summit, the first time I was there, really to catch, suddenly we heard a big avalanche. And then you think, well, what was that? But then avalanches are always happening and so on. But suddenly a massive pressure wave was going through our tents. And I said it was absolute wind still. And then we were alarmed. You get out, not as fast as usually. You can imagine, again, think about that candlelight. You're really slow, it's cold, etc., etc., everything is frozen. And then we said, what's going on there? And finally we realized, hey, something must have happened. We don't know what, but we immediately decided to go in. We were scared. Most of the time we are scared of something. Maybe I was scared before I started my speech here, but we are not scared in situations. It was the same for us, and suddenly we were one of the biggest battlefields we have ever seen. We were confronted with death before, and I'll show you a little clip what happened there.
Es ist 4:30 Uhr morgens, als eine riesige Lawine Lager 3 am Manaslu in die Tiefe reißt. Nur eine Viertelstunde später sind Benedikt Böhm und sein Team als Ersthelfer vor Ort. Überall liegen Zelte, Ausrüstungsgegenstände, Schuhe. Die Zeit rennt, mit jeder Minute sinken die Chancen, noch Überlebende zu finden. Rund 30 Bergsteiger wurden im Schlaf von der Lawine überrascht. Dramatische Szenen spielen sich ab. Viele der Verschütteten tragen keine Handschuhe, keine warme Kleidung, nicht einmal Schuhe. Sie drohen zu erfrieren. Die Retter sind die ersten Stunden auf sich alleine gestellt. Erst dann kommen die Rettungshubschrauber. Aus der Luft sieht man noch einmal die Dimension der gewaltigen Lawine, die für 11 Bergsteiger zur tödlichen Falle wurde.
Yeah, and we had been working there. We were in the situation in the battlefield. We had been working there for 4 or 5 hours, gathered the people who survived on that spot where you see the couple of people. Up there you see that massive cornice. This is from an avalanche. I've seen many avalanches in my life, but I've never seen such a cornice ever. While we were working there, we were of course nervous because we knew we can do the first aid, but we cannot carry these people down. There are no hero stories on 8,000 meters where you carry your body down because you're so strong and Hollywood tells that, etc. It doesn't happen. It simply doesn't happen. There's only the rule of self-responsibility, the rule of knowing how far you go and where not. The same day, we were very released because helicopters are usually not flying very often in Nepal. It really needs brave pilots who are doing that. The same day, we went down. And of course, we were also down. The day before, we had been dreaming about the summit. Suddenly, we were in one of the biggest avalanche disasters the Himalayas had ever seen. Then the first discussion started. But most interesting was that the people we were fighting for, 11 people died that day, but the people we had been fighting for, and I wasn't sure if everybody will survive, had they survived or not, because they were all in Kathmandu hospital. We got a call, and everybody had survived. Actually, we met them in Munich. Most of them were European. A couple of months later, most of them I didn't recognize because they didn't have any beards anymore, etc., and so on. But all of them had survived with their fingers, with their toes, no frostbites, etc. And I wasn't sure that day. So that was a big daylight in that dark day, I would say. And then, in the end, the team decided, okay, very democratic. Everybody took his decision. 3 left, 3 stayed. I stayed, even though already was a family father, and so on. But I think there was something inside me which said, no, you stay on that mountain. You had already invested so much time in the mountain. It doesn't matter now for that 1 more week, no matter if you make the summit or not. But you have to imagine there was a lot of preparation in all these years, a lot of setbacks, and suddenly I was there. And I thought, okay, I just stay there. And then, of course, there's that codex within that being a mountaineer, that you know what you're doing. You also know the risk. There would never be a mountaineer who would blame another mountaineer, why didn't you go up after an avalanche, how could you do that, and so on. It was actually the opposite. There were some more mountaineers out there. Glenn Blake, for example, one of a famous American skier, who lost 2 friends that day. The only 2 friends he was there with. He was leaving the base camp, obviously, but he said, Benny, you guys have to do it again. You have to do it for me. You go up there. There was another South American guy, Ivan, the first South American who climbed all 14 8,000-meter peaks without supplemental oxygen. He really charged me. And in the end, after 5 days, I said, okay, we start again. We take all that courage. We start, we do it. And I needed that activation from outside that we actually, reload that momentum. We started from base camp. You start into the night at 6 p.m. And you see there the different camp spots which we left out at the way. So 6 o'clock, we went and went up and then went up. And around 4 o'clock in the morning, on 7,400 meters on that key section where you see that big ridge over there. So right where it goes up, also where the avalanche came off. There was a very strong wind, but finally when I got onto the ridge, the wind has not been a wind anymore, it has been a storm. And I was totally shocked. I didn't understand where the wind is coming from, what was going on suddenly. And now I knew with that wind, I won't make it. I will not make it to the summit. I will have frostbites, it won't happen, it's too early. If I go back, I will never have the energy again to go up. So I thought with my little headlamp, and I looked, and somewhere I saw a little tent, and I couldn't believe it, there was a tent. I opened the tent, there was nothing in there except a lot of snow. I sneaked myself into the tent and I thought, okay, I'll wait here until the sunrise comes. And the sunrise, it's amazing, it gives a lot of energy. And maybe with the sunrise, I thought maybe the storm also goes back. And this is what it looked like.
7400 auf Lager 3, stürmt ohne Ende. Es ist 4:30. Ich hoffe, wenn die Sonne kommt, dass es aufhört hier zu stürmen, weil sonst ist es ziemlich scheiße. Mal sehen.
You understood the last word? But the sun was coming. The sun was coming. I was there on the summit after 15 hours in total, having spent 1.5 hours in the tent. The sun was coming. And I remember the only thing which kept me going, because your body feels that you would die. There's not enough oxygen. The only thing which kept me going was a permanent mantra which said, there's no reason to turn around. There's no reason to turn around today. This went for hours and hours. There's no reason to turn around today. And later I found out this was the will I had been building up for so many years, for so many days, getting up very early in the morning, training, back to work, etc. and so on. The will which kept me going in the end. My friends had turned around. Thank you. But on the other hand, I wasn't in the stage that I put up my Isaacs. My friend hadn't been there. There had been a turnaround, but the most important goal is that everybody gets home safely or back to base camp safely. In the end, we made it. After 23.5 hours, I lost 7 kilograms within these 23.5 hours, and this is what it looked like when we returned.
Zurück von Manaslu. Genau 23 Stunden, 35 Minuten, insgesamt 3585 Höhenmeter. Und der Mann ist endlich mal erledigt, aber ich bin auch erledigt. Ich bin eigentlich tot.
And I was erledigt, so really done. But it's interesting, you think suddenly you have achieved that, it's done. But I learned, for myself at least, that what keeps me going, what keeps me getting up in the morning is not what I achieved yesterday. It's what is in front of me. It's not about backward, but it's in front. I never enjoyed occupying or owning or having or whatsoever. Actually, it was the opposite. It made me heavy. Because what kept me going was living by targets. I was 1 year later with my family in Greece on the beach, and somehow it started again. Wow, what could be? And I got nervous. And it started again, and soon the next expedition was planned. But today I know it doesn't have to be always an expedition. I think 3 kids, every single one is an 8,000 meter peak itself every day, I would almost say. Managing a company, having responsibility for a couple of hundred people is a responsibility which is an 8,000 meter peak. So it doesn't always have to be that. But the methodology we use is the same, or I use at least. It is the target out there, which could be our dream, no matter what you have as a target. We have these setbacks. Of course, we have the fear. Then we have the courage and the balance between them. Are we overcoming it or not? And in the end, we say, yes, hopefully we do it, or we have to turn around. That's it. I wish all the best for your expeditions. Thank you.